Well, welcome to Tim's Take, and today we have a couple of wonderful guests, and Sam Polly and Daniel Sjarpe from the, let me get this right, Pesticide Safety Education Program.
Correct.
That's right. All right. Yeah. And you're with part of the Plant Science and Technology Division at the University of Missouri.
Correct.
And you are the ones that keep us, the farmers safe, their workers safe, and the environment safe, and the general public safe.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And through education programs.
Yep.
And you work closely with Missouri Department of Agriculture.
Uh-huh.
So what's the main things that you all do then? Is this training?
Yeah, I would say training and education are the main thing we do. And but saying that, it's a very large encompassing world we have. Everything from commercial applicators to private applicators to homeowners and even kids. So we teach the whole gamut. It's a very unique role, very broad.
And teaching them what?
We will teach them how to properly and legally apply all the different types of pesticides, because we don't just cover the private side or the commercial. We also cover the commercial side, and it is not just farm based. Like, we actually teach all of them, or are in charge of that training. So
people can get both a commercial license if you do it for a living. I mean, if you're getting paid to do it.
Right.
Or if you're doing it just for yourself, that's a private license.
Right.
Correct. Yes.
And the same type of training for the most part, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's one of the huge changes right now is there's been a little bit of discrepancy as far as the standards. Commercial applicators typically train almost a full day, whereas private applicators, it's been 2 hours is kind of an average.
Sure.
So now the EPA is bringing that up to speed, so they're going to be more similar.
All right. So what kind of challenges do you all have, not only with the training, but maybe with the programs itself?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, I would say the biggest challenge is huge. It's really worldwide, especially nationwide. And that is the big change that's happened over the last 100 years as we've transitioned from an agrarian society. I mean, the world my grandparents grew up in, where everybody had a 40 to 400 acre ranch, and it was broken up into small farms. Now we're looking at these big 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 acre farms that are row crops of predominantly beans and corn. And so what's happened is everybody's shifted to an urban society. And I saw that in my hometown, where all the dairy kids, all the beef kids were going off to work for Amazon or, AT&T as IT people, or, graphic design or whatever. And so we've seen this shift where society no longer understands what it takes to raise a soybean plant or a carrot or a potato. And with that comes this whole misunderstanding of what it takes to grow. And so people don't realize the need for pest control. They don't realize how fast weeds can take over 10,000 acres of soybeans, or how fast one of the cutworms can come in and wipe out your corn. And so with all the commercials and advertising and a lot of public misconception, it's trained people to think, oh, we don't need pesticides. They're evil. And why do we even have them? They're just poisoning. These corporate farms are poisoning us. And they don't realize the level of regulation and science and research that's going into the original, first of all, the development of the chemicals that we use for pest control, and second of all, the actual application of them. And so when I was a commercial applicator, I would have people walk down the sidewalk and, hey, I can't believe what you're doing. You're poisoning. And I would stop them and, really, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Here, let me show you something. I'd start showing them the label and show them my safety binder and show them all my licenses and certifications. And their eyes would literally pop out. They would tell me, I had no idea. And so it was this moment, this light bulb moment with these people to educate them. And I think that's the point where, like Dan and I are in a large scale, but even our applicators, our farmers, everyone has this massive responsibility right now. It can't just be Dan and I. The two people can't reach the entire state of Missouri or the entire United States. And so we're really starting to work very closely with a lot of agencies, Missouri Department of Conservation, Missouri Department of Natural Resources, and other states, other universities, and gain this momentum of collaboration to say, hey, we need to educate society before we lose all our chemicals. And they're coming off the market as all these lawsuits and extra regulations come down. And so we're really at a tipping point right now, a unique time in society where our job as educators, it's not just to train the applicators, the farmers and the commercial applicators. Here's how to be safe. Here's how to follow these new regulations. But here's how to interface with the public and start to educate so we can turn the tide. I mean, the classic example is this kid that showed up at my grandpa's house, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm cutting these oranges and have to make orange juice." He says, "Don't give me that. Orange juice comes from a cylinder in the grocery store in the freezer section." And so that's the mentality we have in society now.
Sure. And there's been some pesticides that have, like you said, have been banned.
Right.
Because they lasted too long. I mean, that's one of them. I remember as a kid when the chlorine-based insecticides were heptachlor, for example, and I know my dad was like, we used that in corn. That was a great corn insecticide, but I've heard the entomologist say this was 50 years ago, saying it's still in our soil. Uh-huh. So we don't use those organochlorines, I was trying to say, or the organophosphates have gone away also to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. So our new pesticides, they don't last in the environment very long, correct? I mean, it's pretty well, they want them to do their job and go away.
Yeah, that's
break
the
down,
trend, right?
Break down into the basic elements: carbon, nitrogen, oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, that there is nothing. There's hopefully nothing still out there that would have that 50-year hang time like they used to. Yeah,
or
yeah.
even 6 months.
Right.
Yeah, unless they're a designated residual, of course. Like
right.
some of them will last that long, but they're meant to do that. Yeah.
Right.
And the amount you put down that's where the label's the law, right?
Correct. The label is the law. Thank you.
And there's a reason now. I might say, well, if a pint per acre does a good job, why can I put a quart per acre on?
Right.
The plants can handle it. My target crop can handle it, but there's a reason for that, isn't there?
Right.
Yeah. That was the old logic, and that is illegal unless the label allows like an 8 ounce to 16. That's outright, and but you have to be within that. You can't put 32 down. That is illegal.
But that's one of the problems we still face.
Yep.
People think, oh, these farmers and the golf courses, they're killing us. They use so many chemicals, and they don't realize homeowners are one of the biggest sources because they don't have the same training level that commercial and private applicators have, and they don't take any classes. So they go to any store, buy stuff off the shelf that maybe not quite as concentrated, but then they have that mentality, hey, man, that 1 ounce sort of worked. I'll use a pint. And so we have runoff of nutrients and pesticides going right down the gutter in town. And so if you look at some of the pollution in the creeks, a lot of that's probably from homeowners in the urban settings. And I run into people all the time that say, man, these herbicides, just this brand, I don't like it. It doesn't work. I keep blasting my driveway. I said, well, what weeds do you have? Oh, I don't know. These like dandelion type things. And I go and look, and it's not even a weed. It's labeled. It has some specification like do not use during times of drought, use in the spring when actively growing at a certain stage. And these homeowners don't even think to go to an extension agent or a botanist and find out what the weed is. Is it on the label? What stage do I apply this? And so they're just blasting herbicide at the wrong time, not even effective. And it's running right off in the rainstorm.
And that's a good point. Our extension field specialists, they're not just for the farmers; they're for everybody.
Right.
Correct.
To use to use them as a resource for the weed ID, for example, the pest ID, because the insects are involved in this and diseases, but also the rates to use and when to use them. I know a good friend of mine was talking about spraying insecticide on his tomatoes because it had these insects with these big lacy wings. Oh my goodness!
No, those are beneficial.
You took out your beneficials,
right?
You know, so that education is very important.
Yeah,
and as we do move away from the people that have a farm background, we are moving away from that basic knowledge. But even some of the farm background can get you in trouble too.
Right.
Well, and that goes into misusing a product.
Right.
You know, if it's not an insecticide is not supposed to be used on animals. Mm-hmm. If it's not labeled that way, and so that kind of happens too sometimes.
Yeah. We out in society, I run into people, and they find out what me and Dan do, and they say, I was a farmer for 30 years, and we just oh, I don't have time to put on gloves. It's not that big a deal. It's just some chemical. And I mean, they'd wash their hands with gasoline to get dirt off. And then they go and they're using pesticides, and they would describe the herbicides running down their arms and dripping off, and they just wipe it off and keep going. And it took them decades to slowly learn, as, you know, their dad died of cancer or had some other health problem, or just getting good education and realizing, wow, there's a reason you put gloves on. They do research on rats and mice and discover what this could possibly do to a mammal, and maybe I shouldn't have had that stuff dripping into me. And a lot of people have mentalities like, oh, insecticides are bad, but this is herbicide, it's designed to kill plants. But they don't realize the chemistry of those solvents designed to pierce cell walls, and who knows what even the inactive ingredients are doing to your cells and your liver and everything. And so I get these applicators like, man, I never wore gloves for 20 years. And I finally realized once I started getting skin rashes, oh, I should have been. Now I wear gloves. And so they praise Dan and I for what we do. They're like, thank you for trying to reach the current generation, because we didn't know, and we really blew it. Now they have skin sensitivities and problems like that.
Well, and there's acute exposure and chronic exposure.
Correct. Yes.
And it's that chronic, that continual exposure, that's where you can get into trouble.
Yeah, because you can't see it usually. It doesn't show up. Oh, I haven't ever had any problem. I mix the pesticides in the tank with my arm. You know, it doesn't hurt me, but it is slowly hurting. You can't see that.
And that's what we did 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
And then also the amount you mix up, you want to be able to use what you've mixed up.
Correct.
You
Yes.
don't want to. For one thing, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But then, how do you deal with what you have?
Uh-huh.
And what do you do? You can. It's legal to put it on the labeled crop.
Right.
You can do
Correct.
that.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have leftovers, still, what do you do?
Yeah. Now, I had a great benefit when I was a commercial applicator. I had basically an unlimited list of clients. So we would work very hard to calibrate our equipment so we knew exactly how much it would put out. And we would look at the size of the target crop we were going to spray that day, or maybe we had 3 clients we were going to spray. And so we would very closely calculate how much we were going to put out. So we would usually come pretty close, but once in a while, oh man, I got 50 gallons left over, or 200 gallons left over. Call the next client. Hey, we didn't have it scheduled to hit you guys today, but is it okay for us to drop by? Absolutely. We'd love for you to show up early, 3 days early. So we go out and use up the rest and say spray a quarter of their crop. And then, all right, we got a quarter of your crop done 3 days early. We'll be back on the scheduled day to finish up. And they're like, cool, thanks. They were always happy to have us show up days early. Mm-hmm. And then we used up that crop legally on a legal crop that was labeled. And that's how we would finish off our spray. So we had a great benefit. But even the homeowner, oops, I have a half gallon left. If you have a good, some good neighbors, say, hey, do you guys need some extra spray? I'll come over and do it myself. Use it up on their same, like say it's a lawn application, go use it up on their lawn. Now it's used up on a legal labeled crop. And now you don't have that extra sitting in the garage for some kid to get into or to dump over or plug your lines or whatever.
And calibration is the key.
Oh yeah. Calibration is so important, especially to make sure that you have, in good condition tips, spray tips in particular, especially for farmers, because seeing some of that research is like, wow, that only looks very slightly off, but it's putting out like twice as much as it should, which means they're trying to save, because tips are like $7. They used to be 70 cents even 10 years ago when I used to purchase them in bulk. And and they're trying to save that basically $7, not realizing that they're putting down an extra $700 in chemicals sometimes. Right. Yeah.
Around the house when I use a backpack sprayer, I got to realize I'm probably putting down 30 gallons per acre.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to realize I got to have a very dilute solution to actually for this to come out right, or I'll be way over applying.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because that's part of the trick with that calibration. It's one thing for a farmer that's calibrating, but he knows he's putting out 10, 15, 20 gallons per acre, versus in your case, the label probably says until wet or drenched or something like that. Yeah, and that's very different.
So you want to go very dilute then.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, and tank contamination, that's a huge issue. Let's not get started on that, huh?
Yeah, I don't like talking about that one, but yeah, classic example. So I worked for a large landscape company, the biggest landscape company in the nation, and one evening, one of my guys got back with, I forget, I think it was a 500-gallon tank. He's like, oh, man, I'm so tired. It was a long day. I'll rinse it first thing in the morning. And then he slept in. I show up, jump in the spray rig, assuming we always dealt with the spray the night before, rinsed the tank, had it ready to go. I jumped in and went out to spray 2,4-D, not realizing my lines had glyphosate. And I went out and nuked somebody's lawn. Company manager goes, hey, is there a reason a big section of our lawn is brown and dead? And I was like, there shouldn't be. I go and investigate, and I know what happened. It was brutal. And Dan and I see that right here on campuses and landscapes and right in Columbia, Missouri. Oh, look at those strips of death. Somebody had some left over in the lines or a leak or whatever, and they nuked their lawn.
My rule of thumb, I always assume the person didn't clean it out.
Right.
Yes.
Unless I see them clean it out or know them well enough. But even then, again, they could get distracted, something could happen, and they didn't get that done.
Right.
So tank contamination, drift, overspray, those are all some issues that having this training helps people at least be aware and how they can overcome some of these things.
Yeah. And we see that the light bulb come on, whether it's master gardeners or homeowners at a horticulture event or producers, is technique. People don't think about technique and how much are you overlapping. If you're overlapping your swath, then you're going to get double application. And maybe you want to do that on purpose, but you better make sure it's even. And like homeowners, we did a master gardener advanced pesticide training recently, and I got out a backpack sprayer and showed how to calibrate. Calibration scares people. Ooh, that's a big word. It's not that complicated. You just need to see how to do it. And so we taught that, and you can just see people, wow, I didn't know how you do this. As they walk the swaths, time, 1,000 square foot area with a backpack sprayer, and people go walking down the sidewalk to spray the weeds in the cracks, and they're doing, I call it the pesticide dance. They're jumping back and forth like 1, 2, 3, triple over apply, quadruple over apply, and then they move on to the next spot. No, just one nice even swath, and those plants are dead. You don't need to triple or quadruple over apply. And people just don't know these things. They read the label, and it doesn't show you how to apply. And so that's the benefit of pesticide safety training, whether a full day commercial applicator or a 1 hour with some homeowners. Oh, wow, now I actually see how to do this. We get to go out and see this or watch a video or whatever the venue is. It's amazing.
Are there any videos online that show how to calibrate homeowners or?
There's quite a few. Like I know, I think it was Rusty and Gatlin did one a few years ago, and it was for
There's
small.
a field or agronomy field specialist.
Right.
Yes,
yeah. They did one on a small tractor sprayer, how to calibrate. I think between us and all of our other 50 states, we have a lot of videos out there. You can usually find like at least 3 states on any topic like that. Here's how you do it. And they do a quick 5-minute YouTube video. So there's a lot of resources out there.
So how do you deal with the right to farm? If I'm a organic grower right next to a commercial, how does that work?
That's been really rough. I mean, you think about the average day, there's been some studies done looking at, let's just say last year, the wind records for the main growing season. There really aren't a lot of days available where the wind is within 3 to 10 miles an hour. And so a lot of farmers are like, I have to get these 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000 acres sprayed. So I know the wind's a little more than it should be today, but I better just get it done. That's when you have that drift event. And if you're an organic farmer right next to the 2,4-D farmer, you're hurting. And it's a rough deal, and it doesn't always come out well. And that's where I think we really need to see more collaboration and good neighbor working together. And honestly, I think a lot of time what's happened over the last, 10 years or so is organic farmers like, I can't be here. I'm surrounded by these farmers with these products and I get hit, so I'm going to move. For example, we didn't do this on purpose, but my wife and I bought a house out near Fulton. We're out in the woods. We have farmers around us. They have corn and soybeans, but they're 3 miles away through an oak forest, and we never get drift because, well, first of all, they're using products that don't drift as much, but second of all, we have 4 massive amounts of forest between us and those row crops, and so we just don't get drift. And I've visited people up north of Columbia where they're surrounded by corn and soybeans, and their plants are all curled up in their garden every year. So I think you have to kind of cluster. Organic farmers need to be in an area where they're surrounded by some hickory oak forest, or the Ozarks is a classic example. It's a lot easier to do specialty crops on 3 acres of maybe a miniature valley tucked away in the hills than it is out in the open flat plains where you're surrounded by the big row crops. And so I think over time, people have shifted. So most of your organic crops, or at least a lot of them, are in those safe spots where they're next to 3 other organic farmers, and their beehives are there, not worried about insecticides drifting. But it's all about kind of the habitat and the landscape these days.
And there are nice resources out there, like what I think Sam might have mentioned already was there are things like Field Check where you can put where your organic stuff is, and also Bee Check where you can put like beehives and stuff, and then the farmers can check that and be like, oh, I should reach out to that person and let them know when I'm spraying.
That's a great resource.
Yeah.
And I still find a lot of people aren't aware of it. So you go to fieldwatch.com, and then they have the Bee Check and the Field, and there's 4 different ones. And so you can register your beehives or your organic crop or whatever. And then, the applicators, especially aerial guys or different commercial applicators, can look on there. Oh, okay, I better call that person and check in with them. Hey, I'm going to be spraying on Thursday. I've checked the wind. It's flowing this way. Okay, thanks. Or people can cover up their beehives. So it's a really great communication tool. And I think more and more people are starting to use that.
But under most conditions, the pesticides don't go that far.
Right. They
as
should.
long as you're applying it properly, yes.
Right, right.
Yes.
If you're within that 8 miles per hour wind speed, maybe 20 feet?
I didn't even have, when I was a commercial applicator, I never got a single drift complaint, and I would go out and check my sites, and I was just right on target. I was calibrating probably weekly, making sure my equipment, I didn't have a blown or worn tip or plug, and we knew exactly how much to put down. We were watching the wind, and there's other things you can do. Let's just say the wind's going 12 miles an hour. Like, man, our schedule, we're so booked up. You can start spraying upwind a little bit so that the drift is hitting your target. You don't have to go right on that edge so you're going 20 feet off the downwind side. So there are different things you can do to apply properly. So not only following the label, but just having good field experience and good technique, it can be avoided.
I know I've dropped the boom before.
Yes.
Trying to get the, because if it is on the edge, I can gain some that way.
Right. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I would do is lower my pressure and just have bigger droplet size.
Yeah,
you might not get quite the percentage of coverage you would have otherwise with the finer drops, but now you're dropping it straight down. It falls through the air. It doesn't drift. So there's a lot of things you can do: pressure, droplet size, dropping the boom, exactly.
Or even put more gallons per acre, so you can drop your drop your pressure. You can. There are things, and this is what they learn. That's why people that spray either have a private or commercial applicator's license.
Correct. Yes.
So they have this training.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we'll stop right now, and we're going to pick up with some of more of the training part. That's a good segue into what you all do.
All right.
And the challenges and what, like the new categories that are coming up, and the youth program, and really what's happening in society.